Okay, welcome everybody to this class called Indoor Gardening 101. My name is Christian Acosta, agriculture educator from Cornell Cooperative Extension, Allegany County, and today we are learning about gardening, especially indoor gardening. So let's see what is this about. So we're going to be talking about getting started with indoor gardening techniques and troubleshooting and problem solving and creating some designs, some nice indoor garden designs. So if you have questions, feel free to ask in the chat or feel free to unmute your microphone and ask. So let's start with this presentation. Okay, so why it's important to keep growing plants, in this case, indoors, having an indoor garden. So it's proven that having plants around us that helps for that psychological well-being. Also, it promotes that well-being and reduce stress and that enhance the mood. So especially right now that everything looks like dead outside, it's gray and cold. So most of the plants out there, they are just overwintering. So nothing beautiful about flowers and leaves and everything. So it's nice to have something indoors that keep growing regardless of the weather conditions. So this also helps for filter and purifying, absorbing some pollutants from the air and providing some nice oxygen, something that we can breathe this oxygen even when we just feel that is the normal air at home, right? So, okay, even if it's not like the jungle or the forest, just a nice breeze, because of course there is a lot of plants out there. Still, we can benefit from the oxygen that the plants are providing. And same time, they are absorbing this carbon dioxide that we produce. So we benefit from the plants benefit from us. And this is something that keep us busy during the cold season because sometimes, okay, the gardening season is done outside. So what to do now? So this is something nice. You can keep growing your plants at home, regardless of the weather conditions. So that is something nice and helps with the humidity levels. And like I mentioned, stress, reducing the stress, and it's something nice to keep doing. Okay, so we have thousands, millions of plants around the world. So how to start? What plants can I bring indoors? What plants can I not be growing indoors? So that's one of the challenging questions, especially when you are just starting your indoor garden. So here I'm presenting you these ones. These are plants that they are beginner friendly. So of course there are more plants that you can be growing, that we can be growing here in New York State. But with these ones, they are beginner friendly. So they don't need a lot of requirements and they are not very picky. So it's easy to be growing these ones. So for example, here you can see the spider plant, pothos, the snake plant, ZZ plant, aloe, mint, rosemary. So many of the herbs, basil, um, some of the veggies like some veggies like the arugula, lettuce. So you can keep growing these ones indoors and they are hardy ones. So don't worry if you think that you have a black thumb. And I always mention black thumb because nobody has black thumbs. It's just that we don't know how to grow specifically this plant or the plant that we want to grow or that plant that we got from our uh, birthday or a nice gift from someone, um, that sometimes we give orchids or flowers or some of these beautiful plants. So don't worry, we are learning about this today. So if you want to go for something easy, pick one of these ones. Also because these ones that I'm presenting here, that you're seeing here in on the screen right now, they are already adapted for these conditions. So in New York State, sometimes having a very dry environments, especially now during the winter. So these ones are hardy ones, and they can tolerate some of these challenges about light and temperature and everything that I'm going to be showing you. in the next couple minutes. Okay, so before, okay, these are some of the options, but before buying our plants, it's nice to consider about our space, about what is the space, the light, in this case, the light that we are going to provide for our plants. So in this case, this is a really nice diagram, a nice picture that feel free to take a screenshot, or this recording is going to be on YouTube, so you can go back to that recording to specifically this slide, because it's really nice about having the information about light for our north, east, west, and south window. So if we have very low light to the opposite, that is having a lot of sunlight, direct southern exposure. And based on this amount of light, so you can see that we have different plants. So for example, here, if you want a ficus, or if you want, so you know that you need some indirect light, and you can be placing your plants in a west or even south looking facing window. If there are some plants that you need just like medium light, low light, and here the note, so all plants on lower light spectrum can also tolerate up to bright indirect light. So good to know. And here you can see it's very informative, so I'm not taking too much time explaining this one, but it's nice if you want, for example, photos, the pothos, or orchids, ivies, well, different plants. This is something nice about light. But don't worry, if you don't have this amount of light, it doesn't mean that you cannot grow these plants. So for example, if you have no natural light because it's the basement, or just the window is not facing west or east, etc., or it's just in the kitchen, etc., don't worry, because you can use artificial light, and I'm going to be talking about that in a couple of minutes. So if you have this naturally, so you're lucky, you're going to be saving money about buying artificial lights and all this. But if not, don't worry, you still can start your garden inside, your indoor garden. So, okay, let's move the next one. Okay, here we can see two examples. So to the left is the same room, but to the left we see someone. So probably this person loves monstera plants. I personally love monstera plants, but consider that these ones, they can grow a lot, and they can be really big and taking a lot of space. So of course we need more light, and we need space. So for this case, it's like, it's wrong. Not because of the plant, because the plant can be close to the window and no problem about having light, about having fertilizer, soil. Well, you can have the plant there. But it's more about the space, about spacing. And of course, it's not going to be easy to be walking around the room, and at some point you can even kick the pot, and a lot of just a mess. And so also it's not nice for the energy flowing, the stream of energy. So if you like feng shui and keeping the environments with a nice energy, so that's also something that is not working in this case, right? But what about this second example to the right? So in here to the right, we can see the same space that is a small room, but full of plants. So here to the left, we have just 2 plants here. And to the right, we have multiple plants, nicely distributed, and it looks beautiful, full of life. So it's gonna be beautiful for the person working, for example, in this desk, or reading, or well, laying down and just observing and having that nice nature around. Having that is like a natural therapy, right? So here you can see someone on the wall. You can see some orchid benefit, because orchids, they don't like direct sunlight. So instead of that, we can use our cacti, for example, put our cacti and the basil close to the window because they love the sunlight. Here we have some on the wall, some hanging here, some pothos. So it's beautiful, right? So it's a nice texture. A lot of plants around. It's not too much, it's not too little. And it helps for the space, right? So this is nice to consider the space. Where are you going to be putting your plants? Okay, another thing to consider before buying the plants, and it's easy to grow, or is yeah, not that easy, not too hard, or is really challenging and hard to grow. So this is a common mistake, and many people get just like frustrated, and they think that they have black thumbs because they got, for example, an orchid, and they are not used to be taking care of plants at home. So of course, uh, it's easy to fall in overwatering or just putting repotting the orchid in we using potting mix, for example, or just placing the orchid in direct sunlight, or well, many mistakes that we can be doing, right? Because orchids, they are not too hard, not too challenging to grow, but they are not very easy to grow. So it's like in the middle. It's not that hard. So of course, if you're going to start just like right now, gardening 101, just starting with your garden and with orchids, so it's gonna be challenging. So um, don't feel bad, don't feel frustrated if you kill your orchid, because it's just that they need um, they are picky about requirements about they need light, they need special amount of light, water. Well, so we're going to be talking about this one also in this presentation. So if you want just to start, go for something easy like cacti, succulents. They are easy to grow, not very like extremely easy, but they forgive a lot. Um, so sometimes if you forget to be watering the orchid, not the cacti or your succulents, they can tolerate that. They forgive you for that, even for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, sometimes a month, and they are still alive and doing well because they don't need a lot of water. They don't need a lot of like light, water, humidity, and all that. So of course, if you overwater, so yeah, you're going to be killing your succulents. So still, we need some training, but it's not too hard to grow. So go for these ones first, or like the first slide that I show you. These are hardy ones, beginner-friendly plants, and they are beautiful. They are beautiful to have around. Once you start like getting better with this and keeping these ones alive, you move now. Okay, now I can get poinsettia. I can get an orchid, I can get different plants and start slowly. So start with something that is easy and slowly going for something more challenging, like some tropical plants. Like for example, here we can see the bird of paradise. So of course, this is a little challenging because you will need to be making sure that you have the right light, the amount of light, not too much, not too little, the temperature, the humidity, and the space to keep growing these plants. So a little challenging and way really like a hero level. The challenge really challenging. If you want, for example, something very tropical or like a banana plant is just a perfect example about something really hard to be growing here in New York State, because of course, we need a big space. It takes about 9 months, at least 9 months, to produce a banana, some bananas. So of course, the space, the light, it loves the heat. So you will need like a greenhouse, a special greenhouse, and making sure that at least for 9 months, this plant has tons of sunlight and the temperature, the humidity. So of course. Uh, Go for the easy ones. Okay, that's before starting. So now, once you say, okay, for this space, I'm going to buy some pothos and some ZZ plants, some orchid, or well, if you feel that you want to go for the orchids, or I want to buy some couple flowers, okay. So now, selecting the containers where to put our plants. So yeah, they come in sometimes in nice pots, but okay, we need to be reporting and what to use. So in this case, the containers, you're free to pick your containers, but just as a recommendation, just a recommendation here is always try to match the material. So if you have ceramic pots, try to buy only ceramic pots, even if it's not the same color. Play having different textures and colors and designs and the size. But in general, so if all of them they are ceramic, even if they are multiple color, size, etc., that is nice. It's a nice texture inside your house. So it's like a nice indoor landscape. So think about this. It's more about how beautiful it looks more than for the plants. The plants, they don't really care. They don't mind if you're using recycled materials, if you're using terracotta, if you're using ceramic, if you're using glass. They don't really care about that. They just care about the quality of the soil, the drainage, some circulation of air, and that's it. The fertilizer, and that's it. They are not picky. So it's more about the texture, how beautiful it looks. For example, here you can see the plants, all different plants. Well, no, they are the same, but terracotta, even it match with the color of the wall, right? Here you can see plastic, recycled bottles that you can be using, hanging in the fence, in this case, in a fence, or you can do it on the walls. And even if it's something, you don't need to spend a lot of money to make a nice, beautiful garden. So using recycled materials, but you see that when you match the material, they look pretty uniform, they look beautiful. So that's the point here. And about the size of the container, how big or small. Sometimes we fall in the mistake about thinking that the biggest the container, the better, because the plant is going to keep growing. So I don't want to be spending a lot of money buying different pots every now and then. So I'm gonna buy a big pot. But with this, it's way easy to fall into one of the biggest mistakes, that is overwatering, because of course a bigger pot. It has a lot of soil in there, and it means a lot of water. So you use more water to keep that wet. But easily you can be overwatering, because the plant just need this plant, probably if it's a small plant, it needs just a little bit of water, not a ton of water. So keep buying. In this example here in the picture, you can see that the plants, yeah, they are bigger than the pots, and not the pots bigger than the plant. Probably in this case, this is tiny one here. Yeah, the pot is a little bigger, but because the plant is going to grow fast and it's going to get bigger. But if this is not your case, the plant is growing slowly, so go for a small pot. Now, the soil, it's really important, the soil. So this is something that, yeah, the plant can be very picky about this, and it's about the soil. So there is not a general soil potting mix that you can be using for your plants, because this depends about the plant that you want. So every plant has different requirements about absorption of water, nutrients, texture. So it's not the same the substrate for an orchid that the substrate for flowers or for just vegetables that you want to keep growing indoors, or some herbs, right? So if you, for example, you put a potting mix with an orchid, it's gonna die. That poor orchid is gonna die. And if you put lettuce or arugula or some petunias, for example, using the orchid substrate that is mostly bark, sphagnum moss, so that poor flower is gonna die too, because it's not the right substrate. So it's important to be selecting the proper substrate. So if we want succulents, for example, we want flowers and most of the plants, we can use the potting mix, or we can make our own potting mix. So here in this slide, you can see just a general one. This is not exclusive for this plant or this plant. No, it's just in general. And we need a growing medium. So in this case, we're using peat moss, one part of peat moss or coconut coir. So this is for coir. So this is for water retention. Also perlite or vermiculite. So that also helps for the water retention in the air, because we need some air in there. Even when you just see soil, there is air in there. We need that oxygen, because if not, we will have problems with the microorganisms living in there, that they need that oxygen. Also, the roots of the plant need some oxygen. So, okay, for this medium, so for this soil, we need also, like I was mentioning about the air, so perlite or coarse sand. So that helps for that, in organic matter, because of course the plants need some nutrients, right? So you can use a cow manure or horse manure, but if it's a well-rotted manure, not fresh one, because fresh one is still a lot of, and especially nitrogen and a lot of compounds that they can easily affect the plant. They can burn the plant. So if you don't want these in the stores, you can find nowadays substrates for everything. So of course they are more pricey, but if you don't want to be going with these and thinking and mixing everything, so okay, you can buy your potting mix from the store. There is the general potting mix. There is a potting mix for vegetables. There is a potting mix for flowers. Not potting mix, but a substrate for orchids. And even for orchids, there are different ones. Sphagnum moss, bark. There is a mix of everything. So we can easily go to the store and get the soil, the substrate that we need. If you need. Really important, something that we have is good, the well draining. Do not take, how to explain this? Sometimes the soil from the garden outside can be nice for our indoor plants, but remember that is not the same condition. It's not the same, that the temperature, the precipitation, and everything outside than inside. So this is why it's better just to make your own potting mix or go to buy one, because sometimes the soil from the garden is not the best. So it can work for the flowers and everything out there, but not indoors. And that happened to me years ago, even before I started college, that I wanted to grow rosemary at home. And I thought, well, it's just soil. So soil is soil. So I'm going to get some soil from the garden and that's it. That's going to be fine. But this was high in sand. So watering the plant, and 2 or 3 hours later, it was dry again. All the water was down in the plate there. Of course, the plant at some point died. So this is why. Just make sure that it's a nice substrate for the plants indoors. Okay, now like we were talking before, so what if you don't have enough light? So no worries, no worries, because nowadays you can find a lot of options. Before it was expensive to be buying growing lights and not the best colors, and it was mostly expensive. So nowadays, that's not a problem, because there are many companies out there that they produce a lot of these growing lights. So now even in the grocery store, in any big store, you can find in the bulbs, light, and all this section for your house, you can also find the growing lights. Something to take in mind when you're going to buy growing lights, it's about what your plant needs. It's not about, oh, this is the strongest light, so perfect, that's the one that has to be the best. So yeah, that's gonna work for my plant. If you just have a small plant, or you just want to grow something small, but in the contrary, so if you want to grow tomatoes indoors, so of course you need more light. So just a regular bulb that is for a succulent or for a small plant is not going to work for a tomato or some vegetable that needs a lot of light. So recommendation is Google it, like the light or artificial light that I need for my orchid, or that I need for my petunias, or I need for my ZZ plant, or for my, for example, pothos, they don't really need artificial light. So they, with just some indirect light, that's perfect for them. So, sorry about it's the time of the year that it's getting dry, and uh, it's getting dry, and we got the allergies and problems. So sorry about this interruption, but okay, let's continue. So for um, for lightning, it's really important to know what your plant needs. So if it's a tomato plant, if it's a indeterminate tomato, or if it's just a small one, if it's for orchids, if it's, so there is a different requirement about light. So always check about the Kelvin. So usually for most of the plant, so the Kelvin is between 5,000 to 7,500 Kelvin, so that's fine. And about the spectrum. So what's the spectrum is the light that our plants are getting. So I know this is a little complicated and it's hard to explain, because only with this about lightning, we can be talking for 1 or 2 hours. So just to make it a little easier right now, uh, check about what you want. So if you have plants and you just want them to be producing a lot of leaves, so a good option can be a full spectrum. So in this example, we can see here full spectrum. In the box or the envelope, whatever that they come, um, the presentation of the product, you can see something like this. And this graphic is showing you the this range, this spectrum of light that they are providing. So in this case, full spectrum, no problem. You have different light for growing, for in the growing stage, for flowering, for fruiting. So no problem about that. If you want something common, for example, orchids, that they are alive and they are beautiful, but no flowers. You want to promote that flowering, you want them to bloom. So of course, that's gonna take, even with the lights, it's gonna take a long time, but you can do it. And for this one is better the blue and red light. So here, as you can read, so to promote flowers just in general, to keep growing and also producing flowers. So make sure about the 5,000 to 7,500 Kelvin. And also you can use the violet and blue light. So this helps to promote that. And just, yeah, full spectrum, it would be nice, because you don't need to be buying different bulbs and paying attention to which one has blue and red light, or which one has the full spectrum. So just with full spectrum, you're gonna be doing fine. Pay attention is about the, like I mentioned, the Kelvin and what your plant needs. So of course, just with one bulb, for example, in this case, just with one bulb is not gonna be enough for a tomato, for example. So take that in mind. And if it's, for example, a small plant and you buy a huge lamp that it's to grow hemp or to grow any other plant, like big plants, so of course that poor plant is gonna suffer, and you can start producing stress on your plant, and you can be killing your plant only because of light. So pay attention to this, and let's not kill our plants. And also, this information, this is not, usually is not in the box or the envelope, or usually in the box of the bulb or the lamp. But you can get this information, just Google it, the company, because it's directly with the company that produce these growing lights. So they need to give you this information, and it's about the amount of light. It depends about how high or low is the light. Usually, if you are germinating seeds, so the light needs to be closer to the pot or to the the container that you have your seeds. But if they start growing, so you need to same keep the light like putting far from the plant. So in that way, you're giving the right amount of light and not burning the plant or not just keeping too far that yeah they are getting some of that light but it's not enough. With orchids, I mentioned a lot of orchids because they are one of the common indoor plants, but they are picky about this, and is that you can easily check about if you're providing too much or too little light, and it's about the color of the leaves. So if they are like a dark green, something like, for example, moving to the next, like this green, that is dark green, so it means they don't have enough light. And also because they are not blooming. So in order to bloom, they need to have a right amount of light. So this is another way, another reason why your orchids start just not opening when you bring the orchid from the store, and not opening and blooming beautiful. No, they are start just like dropping the flowers. So this is one of the reasons, not enough light. In the contrary, the opposite is when they have too much light, the light is too close to the plant and the green is like yellow. So of course we need that like green yellow color, something like in this example, in this picture, it would be like here, for example, that is not yellow, like in the middle here, but it's not too dark green. So something like here, this kind of yellowish but still green color. And if they have too much light, it's gonna be like yellow, and they are going to be turning yellow. So when it's too much light. It depends, of course, the flower of the plant. This is just an example for orchids. Another different orchids can be turning like purple. So that's also too much light. So pay attention about this and pick or select the right light for your plants. So now, so of course now we have the lights, we have the space, and we have the plant. So now how to keep the plant alive. So in order to keep the plant alive, we need some indoor gardening techniques. So first, number one, really important, watering. So the watering strategies is going to keep your plants alive or kill your plants. So we need to understand what our plants needs. It's not the same like, okay, every Thursday I'm gonna be watering my plants at home. But if they don't need to be watered, so why to keep overwatering? And this is one of the main reasons why we can kill plants at home, and it's overwatering. So we need to understand what they need. So if we have orchids, if we have succulents, if we have herbs, they need different amounts of water. So pay attention about this. If you're not sure, just Google it. Uh, Water for tomatoes, for herbs, for orchids, etc. So you need, you will read that some plants they want, for example, sorry, about orchids, they need like Phalaenopsis orchids, they like to be dry in between waterings, but the same orchids about Cattleyas or Cattleyas, also known as Cattleyas, they they don't like to that getting dry in between watering. So this this information helps to know like when to be watering, when not to be watering. So always take that in mind. Also check your soil moisture. So it's easy that sometimes we see like the surface dry, and okay, my plant needs some water, so we add more water, and then next day it's again dry, so more water, and then the plant dies. So what happened? I was watering, it's close to the window, or I have the LED light or the fluorescent light, what fertilizer, everything, what's happening? So of course we are overwatering. So nice, something nice that you can and cheap that you can be doing is about using your finger just to check the soil moisture. About 2 inches of your finger. Just put, if it's a small pot, use your pinky and just put your finger in the soil. When you take your finger out, if it's dirty, it's wet, and you have soil coming out with your finger, stick there. So you don't need water, even if the surface looks dry, but this happens, so there is still some water in there. Now, if you do it again, and it's like in the middle, it's still a little moist, but still some soil coming out, stick there with your finger. So no, do not water. There is still some water in there. The plant doesn't need more water. Now, if you do it again and then it comes almost clean, dry, like nothing coming out with your finger, so that's perfect indicator that you need to water your plant. So this is a simple one. If not, and if you want to spend a little bit more with your plants, these are these kind of devices that is moisture meter. Some of them they can be checking the pH, the amount of light, and also the humidity, the water in there. So it's going to tell you low is not enough sunlight, or just too much sun, too much light, or the pH is low, or in this case, only if you just want for moisture, you can get the ones that is only for the humidity, the moisture in the soil. So, okay, it's good. Time to water, or you can be checking here, and it's like less than $30 or $20. These ones can be cheap sometimes. It depends the company and the brand that you're using. Well, here I cannot recommend specific brands, but this is an option that you have. If not, your pinky, that's a good method. Also, water at the base, not like a sprinkle, not soaking wet the plant. No, just water at the base of the plant. Sorry, because if we keep our leaves and the plants wet, so this is a perfect environment for fungi, bacteria to start creating a disease. So to avoid that, just water the base of the plant. And also establish a watering schedule. And this happens, and it's very often that you think, but I just watered the plant days ago. It has been just recently. And recently can be 1, 2 weeks, and then the plant is dying, and you're like wondering why, if you just watered the plant. But it's just because we can forget. We have many things to be doing around home every day, so we can forget about that. So it's really helpful in your phone or your calendar, just having one day or 2 days, for example, that you take 10 minutes or a couple minutes for checking the plants and go and check if they need or they don't need some water, or if they need some extra light, or just checking on the plants. And really important, do not water at night, because it's cooler, it's dark, and if you water, so it's perfect humidity level, dark, and the perfect host for fungi to start growing and start creating diseases in your plants. So this is why it's better not to do it at night. Also, the size of the tools, the proper tools to be watering. So for example, here you can see the watering can that is good for the garden outside probably is going to be a mess or just too much water for the indoor plants. So in that case, you can get something like this, some small container, even just a cup that you use to drink water, or that can be fine, just small amounts. Okay, so common watering mistakes that we can see. It's first overwatering, like I mentioned before, just too much water. That's the perfect way to kill the plants at home. Also, ignoring drainage. So nowadays we can see beautiful pots, and even expensive sometimes, beautiful pots, but they don't have any drainage. They don't have any holes and nothing. and they are beautiful, but that doesn't mean that this is the perfect container for our plant. Especially, for example, orchids. Orchids needs like some holes because we need the plant needs the air circulating around, and just the humidity also control that helps to regulate that moisture level. So okay, we don't need these fancy and beautiful ones in the case for orchids, right? So if we ignore the drainage, this is something that is going to create a lot of problems, because of course it's gonna have like being accumulating water. It's gonna be a lot of water in there, and that is going to create fungal diseases, bacteria diseases, and it's a mess with the microorganisms living in there. So to avoid that, always make sure that your pots, your containers, they have some drainage. Also, if you want to use these beautiful pots, you still can use them. But in that case, make sure that you're using a second container. So just a clear example, when you get an orchid, you see that sometimes they come in these beautiful pots, but when you remove the orchid out of this pot, there is like a plastic one that is the real pot that keeps the plant alive. And this pot has some holes, and you see that the water is not being there. It allows the water to go out of the container. So you can use in this method too. But always make sure that the plant has some drainage. Now, if we're using a small, for example, for the succulents, that is a perfect example that we have sometimes some small glass containers, so they don't have holes. But in that case, make sure that there is a layer of gravel or some material that allows to, like, something in the middle from the soil, the potting mix, and the bottom of the container, and never put a lot of water that it just goes all uh, just like soaking wet the potting mix. In that case, just a little bit on the bottom, that gravel or the rocks that is there. So that's enough. That's for this kind of containers. Also, like I mentioned before, watering at night, inconsistent watering. That's also something that you water today, and then 2 days later, and then the next month, and then 2 weeks in between. So all that that is not a nice environment. That is not something nice for the plant. It's a lot of stress because it's getting dry. Sometimes it's getting like too much water. So that's also because it's something helpful about having the watering schedule. Also, ignoring the plant signs. So we can think, I just provide water, fertilizer, and light. So that's fine. The plants are going to be fine. But then the plants are dying. Yes, why? Because they don't die from overnight. They don't die overnight. So they start showing signs. So they start turning yellow. They start like wilting, and uh, the leaves are turning brown or purple, multiple colors that it's not normal. If the plant is normally green and then it's turning yellow, so it's not normal, right? If it's a flower that normally turns in different colors, yeah, that's normal. But you know what is normal, what is not normal. Pay attention to those signs, because in that way you need to check, and you know if you need to remove the light or take the light a little up, or even getting the light closer to the plant, if you need to water less or you need to water more often, if the plant is turning different colors or have some fungus, some disease starting, so you can cut that part of the plant and just prevent some problems in the future, or just killing the plant. And also, not adjusting for humidity, especially in this time of the year. Something really nice and helpful for this time of the year is a device like this. I'm going to show you. So let me see the camera. Yeah, here you can see it. So this is showing you, well, it's not only about the brand, it's just any device that is going to be showing you the temperature And also it has a hygrometer, so it's showing you the humidity. So in this case, 30% is really low. If I have plants around here, I don't have in this office right here, but if I have plants, I know that I need to, I don't know, bring a humidifier and increase that humidity to about 50% or above 50%. So this is a common mistake because even if we are watering, if it's too dry, the tissues of the plant, they are going to suffer, especially if there is some draft that we're going to be talking about that, about temperature and humidity control. So we need to manage that humidity. So if you're not sure about this, Google it. For example, humidity for Phalaenopsis orchids, humidity for ZZ plant, humidity for this plant or this flower or this vegetable. And you can see the range. Usually 50%, 75% of humidity. It depends. For tropical plants, they need even higher humidity levels. So pay attention about this. About temperature in general, it's about 60 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit during the day, and at night little cooler. So if, for example, it's 75 degrees during the day, at night it can be 68, 68, 65. So it's, yeah, not extreme temperatures. Now, if we have the effects of extreme temperatures like too cold or too hot, we see that when it's too hot, so it's a lot of transpiration and stress, the plant start like showing that is getting dehydrated and wilting and changing the colors. Like sometimes the change of color can indicate that the plant is stressed. Also, if it's too cold, sometimes the plant, they are not going to die because it's not like 50 degrees. Your house, usually you don't keep your house at 50 or below 50 degrees, right? So, but still 60 degrees can be a little chilly, a little cold for a couple plants, especially orchids or some tropical plants. So in this case, just make sure that you are offering the right temperature. And about humidity, just in general, above 50% of humidity, that would be good, that would be fine. And the signs of low humidity, so again, the leaves turning brown or yellow, dropping the leaves, wilting. Also, when it's too, the opposite, when it's too humid, fungal diseases, because fungi, they love humidity. So typical fungal diseases and root rot. That's one of the signs. So allow to have some proper air circulation. So in this way, we manage these humidity levels, and it's nice for the plants to have some air. So if you have a small fan, not too strong, because of course we don't want any, avoid drafts. That drafts, it's an enemy for the plants. So just with a ceiling fan and just low, not very active, just a gentle air around the plants, that's gonna be fine, that's gonna be good. Another thing important to keep in mind about keeping your plants alive, your indoor garden alive, is about pruning and this maintenance. So proper harvesting. So especially with herbs, we start just collecting our herbs, and yeah, it smells so good, and enjoying our basil, our mint, and our herbs. But at some point, we see the plant dying, and what is happening? So it's a common mistake that we can be harvesting, just pulling or cutting, but not paying attention where we are cutting the plant. And this is an advice for the harvesting, also for dead heading, that is just removing the spent or dead flowers. Also for pinching the plant to promote the growth, because of course, even if the plant is healthy, we want the plant to be producing, especially herbs. We want that beautiful bush, beautiful plant growing. So pinching is a way to promote that growth. But when you're doing this, take in mind, number one, where you are cutting. So if you cut in this is an example, a mint plant here. So if we cut here, just below the node, below the leaves, we are leaving this stem just exposed in there. So if you pay attention, or you just think about how the water and the nutrients goes inside of the plant, is just like a pipe in your house at home. So like the pipes. So the water and the nutrients, they start going up from the roots, from the main stems, they start going up, and then they go distributing equally in the plant, in the leaves, and the flowers, and the fruits. But if this water and these nutrients, they just come and there is nothing here, so usually they go to the leaves, right? And even when they reach the top, so they go even here in the leaves, the bottom leaves, also happens that the water just start going to the atmosphere, that evapotranspiration. But here, when we cut, or we are pinching or pruning and leaving this notch here, that is a piece of plant that is rich in nutrients, water, and is just open, exposed to the environment. So fungi and bacteria are going to be really happy with that, because it's easy to go inside of the plant and start absorbing and just having all those nutrients and creating the diseases. So then you see this turning brown, yellow, and then start affecting the leaves, and then going down, 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 and then the plant dies. So this is one of the reasons. So pay attention about that. Sorry, when you cut, when you pinch, always make sure that it's just here, right above the node. When you see the leaves, you pinch there, and in that way it's going to heal, and no problems, not have it. The risk about having fungal diseases is not zero, but is less than doing it in this way. Also, we need to be pruning for the shape. For example, some of the pothos that we have hanging, so they can keep growing a lot. So we can be cutting and allowing the plant to be to have some air circulating, not like a bush in there that you don't know what is happening in the middle of the plant, and perfectly that can be space for fungi, for pests, for diseases to be growing in there. So allow some air to be circulating around the plant. And really important, remove the yellow, brown, and diseased leaves. So if you see that something is starting, like for example here, this plant is getting brown and yellow, and it's like going in that direction, you can cut. Cut the stem if you want, or just cut the leaf and stop that there. And everything that you pick, that you harvest, or something that is diseased, take it directly to the garbage, or just far away from the plant. So in that way, you avoid this kind of infections, fungal diseases, etc. So now something important is troubleshooting and problem solving. Sorry. And it's about here I'm presenting you the most common indoor plant pest and diseases. So the aphids, these are tiny ones that they are just walking. You can see it by eye. The spider mites, you see the signs, but not unless you use like a magnifying glass, you can see them because they are really tiny, small ones. The white flies, it's easy because you just shake a little bit the plant and they are flying around. And the fungus gnats, they are not only annoying, they are dangerous for the plants, not for you, for the plants, because they carry fungus spores. So and when they are just picking there the plant, feeding from the plant, they are opening like that door for fungi, especially fungi, to start growing in the plant. So these ones, when you see these ones around the plant, try to control these ones. One of the for diseases and for pests, one of the typical products here to control pests and diseases is neem oil. The neem oil, or agricultural oil, that is safe to use indoors and is good about controlling many of these pests and If you see that it's not working, especially about fungus gnats, uh, try to, even if it's necessary, to repot the plant and throw that soil, because they lay their eggs in the soil, and usually you see them in the soil. So if this doesn't work, the neem oil doesn't work, if you also with peroxide, that's another way that you mix about 50% peroxide, 50% water, and then water this plant. That helps to control fungus gnats, but sometimes they are really smart about surviving. So if that's the case, even you can remove, just repot the plant, and even water, clean the roots of the plant, and then repot in a new container. Because the soil, if it's just contaminated with these ones, it's really challenging sometimes. And now that we're talking about fungus gnats, there is a product that is a little expensive, but it also works for these and many other, for aphids, for white flies, for many other insects. It's really good because it's a natural enemy for the insects, and is this name, Bouveria bassiana. So it's a little pricey. It's expensive, the powder that you mix with water and then spray on your plants, but it's a good way to control these pests and diseases. Only pest, sorry, diseases now. With the neem oil, also you control and you protect your plants from diseases. So this is something nice about neem oil, and it's about protecting from pests and protecting from diseases. Use this before start the disease, because once you see the disease in the plant that is turning, that the roots are turning black, for example, the root rot that is pretty common with orchids, especially because of overwatering or the fungus gnats. Um, there is nothing to do in that way. You can apply a lot of fungicides and a lot of things, but it's not going to work. So apply that constantly. You read the label, always read the labels and follow the instructions there. And you keep applying, and in this way, uh, it's going to be safe for them, for the plants. And it's safe for you, for your pets, for it's safe to use indoors. Never ever use insecticides, especially insecticides indoors. The same insecticide that you use in the garden, like the 7-Dust or these insecticides, carbaryl or many insecticides, do not use indoors, because that can, yeah, it can kill the insects, but it also can kill pets and affect your kids, affect you, affect any other living organism in the house. So take care about this. And we're running out of time. It's a lot of content just to put it in 1 hour. So we're moving fast about general prevention and treatment strategies, like quarantine new plants. Right now it's not possible because it's too cold, right? But in this way, quarantine new plants, just take the new plant in another room, different room, for a couple days, 1 week, 2 weeks. And if it's doing well, it's fine. No animals coming out of the plant, no diseases, nothing. So it's safe to move with the rest of the plant, because it's just one plant is enough to spread diseases or pests around the house. In its way, it's not extremely difficult, but it is challenging to control plants indoors more than controlling plant pests and controlling plants, no, controlling diseases in the plants indoors than doing it outdoors. So just pay attention about this. Regularly be checking on the plants if you see something is not going well. Maintain a clean environment. The leaves that start turning brown and naturally dying, so pick those ones. Don't allow to have that mess, because that can be a hot spot for diseases and for pests. Fertilize the plants. We didn't talk much about this, and it's because nowadays it's so easy to just go to the store. It is for indoor gardening, so you don't need a ton of fertilizer. You can go to the store and you can find the fertilizers specifically for orchids, for plants, for tropical plants, for herbs, or just general ones, and they can come liquid that you just mix with water, and same time that you're watering, you're fertilizing, or to spray or to put around the plant. So always read the labels and follow the dose and the labels. That's the only recommendation here. And also about proper watering practices, sometimes natural predators. So for example, ladybugs, they are really good controlling, for example, aphids, and they are not going to be dangerous around the house. So you can allow them to be around. They are not carrying diseases or anything like that. The ladybugs, because there is another one and another insect that is similar to the ladybug, and that one, yeah, it's considered a pest. But just regular ladybugs, they are fine, they are good. And be pruning regularly and to control also the plant not growing too much, and use organic remedies. If the last resource is to use something chemical, but be careful. So in that case, if you need to spray the whole house or the apartment, make sure that, okay, you follow the instructions, and that's like the last resource. If you need to spray and then leaving the apartment and coming back a couple hours later, take care about your your pets, your dogs, your cats, your children, and always follow the instructions in the labels. These are some ideas, just six examples, six ideas here about indoor gardening design. So you can use the space, the windows, and look how beautiful it looks. Some shelves, you can build your own shelves. If there is not enough space around, you can hang the plants. So always there are many designs. So you can Google it, go in the social medias pages that they have tons of ideas about how to use, uh, how to place your plants. Um, Ideas about the pots and how to place your plants hanging, or many ideas. I'm just trying to put together some of the examples here. For example, in the library, use in the kitchen area. So you don't need a big space to be growing your garden indoors. And also here you can see the growing lights. So we are running out of time. So I think there is not much space for questions. So if you have questions about this, about at some point, it doesn't matter any time that you have questions about home gardening or outside gardening, anything about horticulture gardening, feel free to reach out at any time. You can send me an email, and we are always happy to help. And even when we don't know the answer, we know who can help you with the answer, and we provide that help for you. We are always happy to help. Also, if you have some pictures about what is this, something, this is happening with my plant, this is attacking my plant, or this, I don't know, what is that about? What can I do for this or this? Um, because sometimes we can see a lot of information online, but it's not really helpful. Um, so feel free to ask. It doesn't matter. There are no like dumb questions, or no, don't worry. Sometimes we think like, no, I'm not asking that. That's a dumb question. Like, no, but no, there are literally no dumb questions, because simple things sometimes are really essential and important to keep our plants alive. So also to save money, because if you're applying something and it's not the right chemical or the right product, so you can be losing money in the process. So don't worry, and always send questions, pictures about whatever that you want to know. Also, this is our phone number. We are always happy to help. I'm not taking more time. I'm sorry, I took about 4 minutes more than the hour of presentation. It's a lot of information just to put together in just 1 hour, but I hope that this information is useful for you. And thank you for being here, and I will see you in our next class. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in our next class. See you later. Bye-bye.